Musicians, have you started to notice? Have you started to kind of feel it in your gut a little bit that people don't really respect music and musicians the way they used to? I know some of you, it's like, this is obvious, the way that Spotify's been treating us and all this kind of stuff, but I really want you to look deeper. I know it's harsh, but as a musician, we used to kind of carry ourselves in this way. I know it because I'm a musician. I know how this is. We used to kind of carry ourselves with this sort of like, yeah, I'm a musician. Yeah, I'm a musician. And nowadays, people don't have the same value in that because there's so many of us, right? With the explosion of streaming, with the explosion of AI that's coming and is already here, being a musician has been diminished. It's been devalued, right? Because of supply and demand, right? There's so much supply, it can't even keep up with how many ears are on the planet. So we have to start recognizing that the problem isn't the music. It isn't the music side, most likely. I mean, sure, there may be somebody out there who really needs to keep working on their craft, but most of y'all I know are hardworking musicians, and you've worked on your craft. But the problem is you're not getting noticed, and you're not progressing in your career. And what I found is that underneath a lot of these issues, it's the word just. You think you're just a musician. You think you're just a songwriter. And I used to think I was just a musician until I got kicked in the face by the music industry enough times and I got enough black eyes for the both of us. So don't get those two. I already took them for you. Don't do that. You know what I'm saying? In this video, I'm going to share with you exactly the 3 biggest hangups that are keeping musicians stuck, and they don't even realize how it's keeping them stuck because it's not necessarily something they're creating. Sometimes it's not even something that they're doing. It's the way they're viewing it and the way they view themselves as just a musician. So let me be the one to burst your bubble. You're not just a musician. And in fact, one of the reasons we limit ourselves to say I'm just a musician is we give ourselves a list of can'ts. Oh, I'm a musician. I can't. I'm a musician. I can't do this. I'm a musician. Musicians don't do this. Right? We have this sort of skill-based limitation. And that's okay. Whenever you're learning anything, remember when you learned how to sing or learned how to play guitar or learned how to play piano or drums or bass or whatever your instrument is? You didn't have skill in it, but you developed it. Maybe for some of y'all learned it fast. Maybe for some of y'all took it a little bit longer to learn, whatever. But in either case, you learned it, right? Because the great thing about skill-based limitations is they can be overcame by learning the skill. Right? But we tell ourselves preemptively, we have this sort of learned helplessness I've talked about before, where we say, well, I'm a musician. I'm just a musician. I can't create content. I'm not a content creator. I can't be, selling things. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not Billy Mays. I'm a musician. I can't run a full business. I'm just a creative. How many times have we told ourselves these things or heard musicians talk like this? See, these lists of can'ts that we give ourselves are one of the first barriers that we're putting in front of us. We're saying, like, I've already got so many things on my plate, I can't. Oh, I'm a musician, I can't, right? That is a toxic mindset. Because yes, there are certain things you can't do, potentially. Maybe you're not great at chemistry. Why do we need to be good at chemistry, right? We're musicians. So when it comes down to it, you need to make sure that the skills that you focus on, because you can learn whatever you set your mind to. Forgive me if that sounds cheesy, but you seriously can learn whatever you set your mind to if you have enough curiosity about the subject, and that can be engineered, by the way. You can engineer curiosity within yourself to focus on something because you see the value that you get. You see the yield of learning that information. What does that mean? Well, whenever you learn something, you kind of want to see some tangible result of the thing that you've learned in your life, right? When you read a book, if it's a good book, it either changes how you act in the world, so you actually see a change in your reality because you're doing different things, or it shows you how to do something, and then you go out and do the thing it showed you how to do, therefore creating some change in your life. That's how most people want to consume things, right? And so we have to look at the value of whatever we're trying to learn so that we can see, like, oh, if I learn how to sell, if I learn how to create content, then this is what happens. Well, what happens? You build an audience because you learned how to market yourself and create content that attracts the right people. So you're building an audience. By learning how to sell, you're starting to generate revenue, which means you can start quitting your jobs or going part-time. I can tell you that was a very exciting day, the day I walked in and said, hey, I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. because I'm making enough money from all my music related activities that I don't need to do this anymore. And I want everyone to get to that position, but you have to learn the skill first. And even before that, you have to tell yourself, I am the type of person who can learn this skill. This is something that really haunted me throughout my entire life. When I was growing up, reading homework was like poking me in the eyelid with bells of hay. Like, it was just the worst thing in the world for me to have to go waste time reading a story I cared nothing about just to do some kind of assignment that in the next few years I'm not going to remember any of this. There's no value to this. It was just like pulling teeth. I hated it. And so I didn't do very well in my reading assignments because of this disdain I had for reading homework. And then my counselors, just because this is how the school system is set up, they don't care about the individual circumstance that I was going through or that you're going through. They just say, well, your reading scores are down, so we probably recommend you be held back or that you do this. They weren't considering, it's like, guys, I can read perfectly fine. This stuff is just all boring and I'm not comprehending it because I don't care. That's the thing. Most of the time when we try to go learn something, we don't care enough. We haven't really built it into our bones that this is something we need to learn now. This is something that we need to go deeper on and understand how it works now. So when you develop that urgency, that care about what you're trying to learn, because you understand that when I learn this, I'm going to get the result I'm after. And also, you get this curious feeling of like, okay, well, what's that going to look like? What's it going to look like once I start implementing these things that are actually moving me forward? What am I going to feel like? How's that going to be? You get curious about it and you start getting excited about change. So we have to get rid of the can'ts. First point, we got to get rid of the can'ts. We can't start putting limitations on ourselves and saying, I'm just a musician, I can't do this. No. You're a musician, therefore you can do those things. Turn it on its head. Most people can't do multiple things like this because they're not creatives. You're a creative. So your ability to learn multiple things is actually increased due to the compared to the average person, right? Because you're high in a trait called openness, most likely. If we did like a psychological Big Five personality test on you, I would be willing to bet most musicians watching this would be high in openness. So you have an advantage to learn multiple different things. The only thing that will hold you back is you saying, I'm a musician, I can't do this. And then you therefore don't develop the curiosity and the urgency to learn something, right? Now, the second issue is not the can'ts. Sometimes I know musicians who have gotten rid of the can'ts, but they got these problems. They have the ought not problems, right? Ought not. What is it? You ought not do this. You should not do this. I'm a musician. I shouldn't blank. Oh man, listen, I'm just a musician. Musicians shouldn't be insert task, right? We do this to ourselves. This is different from can't. Can't is like I'm putting my hands up. It's a skill-based limitation. There's no way I can do it because I don't have the skills yet. But we can get over that if we think about this the right way. However, the ought nots, this isn't a skill-based thing. This is an ideology-based thing. And so there's certain ideologies that lead people to say, you ought not do that, right? Because we have a purpose, right? That purpose informs our identity. And that identity that we have informs the values that we carry. So what's going to happen is if you have a certain ideology about who you are, what your identity is, that's going to change your value system because that's what it's predicated on. So we have to think that if we're adopting a starving artist ideology, you will therefore start to create values that of a starving artist. This is an issue because starving artists, one, are starving. I don't want you to starve. I want you to thrive. I would rather you be a thriving artist than a starving artist, right? So how do you get to the position where you're thriving? Well, you have to look at yourself as someone who should thrive. So many musicians, when you really peel back the layers, they don't feel they deserve attention. They don't feel they deserve success. They don't feel that their art really deserves it. And that's a huge issue because we've had these ideologies that have told us success is selling out. You have to be a starving artist. And the only way you can have success is if there's this lightning in a bottle moment where culture just happens to notice you and take recognition and change. you have a Nirvana moment or something like that, a grunge moment. That is not the case. In fact, a lot of the movements that we think were spontaneous were pretty engineered. And I don't think people really grasp how that is played out in our lives. We think of some of these things, if you're a starving artist, you think of, oh, it all just kind of happens with the flow, man. Success will come, I'm not going to focus on success because I'm pure and I'm true to my art. And so thinking about that, I'll be a starving artist until, the world just recognizes my genius. Are you starting to kind of see the egotistical problem with that perspective? Yeah, my music's just so good, and I'm just living so pure to the art that people will just have to take notice, so I don't need to really try to be successful or earn anybody's attention. They'll just give it to me because I'm that good. Sounds pretty egotistical, doesn't it? Yeah, there's a huge issue with the starving artist mindset. It's predicated on people, there's an entitlement that comes with that mindset. Right? And it's like, oh, I'm good at music, therefore I deserve attention. And if I don't, I just can't ask for it because therefore I'm not this pure starving artist. It's a huge issue. It's really a huge issue. And I think a lot of musicians, some of them think of starving artists as just like the archetype. That's just how it's supposed to be. Musicians are just supposed to live, hand to mouth and paycheck to paycheck, and that's just the life of a musician. And therefore, whenever you're in that rut, which that's what it is, it's a rut, it's not a good thing. And when you're in that rut, people give themselves the identity like, I'm just a starving artist, I'm out there bustling and grinding, starving, trying to make my dream come true. Some people view the starving artist like that. However, I wouldn't say that to me really embodies what people say and how they act in the music business. We can talk a lot, but do you walk? And what does the walk look like? And in my opinion, from what I've seen, the starving artist types that say things like that don't act that out. They act out in their belief. Oh, just like success will just come to me. I know I'm working hard on this and that's why I'll succeed. It's because I've got that story of the guy who was just at the grocery store and then someone discovered his genius. See, once you start peeling down the layers a little bit, you start seeing that stuff I was talking about earlier. But on the surface, you get a lot of smoke screen, like we're just hustlers, we're just out there starving artists, I dropped that a long time ago, and so many of the people that hopefully I've been able to touch and the clients that I've been able to work with have been impacted by this idea of, no. Starving artist is a bad thing. We need to escape that as quick as humanly possible. And one of the reasons we're not able to escape that is a sort of secondary mindset that exists out in our culture right now, especially out in the West side of the world, which is the anti-commerce kind of perspective. In the sense that if you sell a t-shirt, you're artistically impotent. I saw someone on the Garza podcast pontificating about how, Kurt Cobain got turned into everything he hated, which is kind of true, but they were talking about how, the reason he became everything he hated is because he was selling t-shirts. I was like, I don't think that's quite the reason. Whatever, and people act like, for some reason, if you're a musician and you desire to earn a living, which is the same sentence as I want to make money. I want to earn a living as a musician. I want to make money. You could put an equal sign right in between those two sentences. They mean the same thing. But for some reason, we have a really hard time saying, yeah, I want to make some money, right? Honestly, some of y'all need to say that out loud. It's been such a weird thing for you that you need to sit there and say, I want to make money. And why would you say that? Is it because you're trying to make yourself greedy? No. You're acknowledging the desire you have that you've been suppressing because of ideologies that have told you you need to suppress it. Ideologies have told you, this anti-commerce, this starving artist mindset has told you you need to bury all those desires of wanting to make money because that's bad. Bad artist, you wanted money. How dare you? That's what they do. They wag their finger at you and call you a bad person and call you, a grifter and all these kind of things because you want to earn a living from music. But the irony is the people saying that and pointing their fingers at you and saying that at you all follow musicians who make a living. And their favorite artists are artists who make a living and earn enough from their music so they can not only pay their bills and not live hand to mouth, but they can actually thrive. They can have some abundance in their life. So the reason I want you to say, I want to make some money, is not because you're going to become a greedy person all of a sudden, but you need to unlock that part of you that you've been suppressing that feels bad about asking people for money. Now, here's the thing. If you have nothing of value to provide, or you're providing a scam of some kind, then yeah, you have an obligation to never offer anybody anything because you're a POS. But if you know you have something of value, your music, which music has such incredible value, I think musicians, because we're so close to it, we kind of overlook it. It starts to become a job. It starts to become kind of just this thing that's been in our lives, and we lose that magic of what it really is. Music is emotional access. As an artist, when someone is listening to you, they have opened up their mind in a way that they are letting you speak to them into their subconscious. That's fundamentally what you do with music. And people don't take it seriously enough, in my opinion. And they don't understand the value that they have and the power they have to influence people's lives positively. And so you need to see the value in your music so that when you go to sell something, there's no weirdness. There's no trepidations about saying like, yeah, and this is $5. And you just look at them and you smile and you're like, yeah, I know it's worth it. Yeah, you're going to get it right now. You're not saying that verbally, but your eyes are basically like, yeah, it's a great thing. You're going to get it right now. That's what's being communicated, body language, attitude, everything. Because you don't have this weird like, yeah, if you want it, you could possibly pick it up. I'm not going to look at you in the eye. In fact, I'm going to turn around because I'm so nervous that you're going to reject me and not buy whatever it is on my merch table or buy what's on my merch store online. We get so caught up in that. And then there's also a crowd, I gotta call these people out too. There's the woo-woo manifestation people too. They say, Dax, I don't gotta focus on all that stuff. I don't have to develop a mindset that understands that commerce is good because I'll just manifest it, man. I'll just speak it into existence and exist on a higher frequency and it'll just attract itself to me. Okay, that's BS. But let me tell you the truth of that. I know I've had some people say like, don't discount the law of manifestation. I'm not. I'm discounting the pseudoscientific version of that is not true. Because here's the real reality. What you focus on, you attract. Think about a time you've bought a car, and it's like you bought it, you get on the road, and now you see that car everywhere. Why? Because your brain is focusing on it. Your brain is taking the near unlimited number of facts about you, about the observable world in front of you, and your brain is narrowing it down to a select group of facts that you can contain in your brain so that you don't go insane from information overload, right? So what happens is when you focus on something, you're narrowing your conscious field to a specific group of things. And when you narrow your focus to that, you see more of it and you focus on more details around it. If I'm looking, there's an experiment that was done where it was like, pay attention to how many times the basketball changes hands between these group of students that are passing it around. And then at the very end of it, they go, okay, what color was the elephant that danced in the background? And they were like, what? What do you mean an elephant? And they go, play the tape back. Now look for a white elephant. And guess what happens? Right in the middle of the frame, in the middle of this video, a white elephant dances on through the frame. And so many people are like, I didn't even see that. Why did you not see it? Because you were using your focus to narrow your conscious field to a certain set of values and principles and things to focus on, so it picked up all the details of what you were focusing on, and ignored the rest. So, if you really want to develop this sort of law of attraction, you have to focus precisely on what it is that you want, but then, and this is what everyone leaves out, then you have to allow that focus to attract you to, people think the law of attraction is I think it, therefore it comes to me. The real law of attraction is I focus on it and it pulls me. Do you understand the difference? Law of attraction is not I'll sit in the corner and think this check is going to say $1 million on it, and then therefore the world delivers the ink and just says $1 million and there's a bank account I can pull it from. That's not how it works. What happens is you say, I'm going to make $1 million. Okay, how would one make $1 million? Well, people that make $1 million, see how now I'm focused on it? Now it's pulling me, and now I'm being attracted to what I'm focusing on, not attracting what I'm focusing on, right? Because for you to get that thing, you have to go to it. It won't just come. If I sit in my office right here, if I sit in the studio and I just wish something to happen, it will not come to me. But if I focus on it and allow it to draw me to it, I allow it to draw me in, then I will start to get closer to it. And that's something that really, if you think about like, how do I manifest success? You don't manifest success by thinking success will come to you. You manifest success by focusing on it and focusing on what does that look like and getting curious about it, like I talked about earlier. And then as you get more curious, you start to focus on it and you start to see the pathway develop clearly in front of you, as opposed to being overwhelmed with doubt and this really starving artist anti-commerce mindset, which is like a crab in a bucket syndrome packaged into an ideology so that you don't even have to have other crabs pull you down. You'll just pull yourself down, right? It's ridiculous. So we need to get rid of all of these ought-nots that are really based on flawed ideologies that don't look at the reality of the world that we live in. And then number 3, one of the biggest issues, is we have conflicts. All right, so it's not an ought-not issue, it's not a can't issue, it's kind of a mixture, and there's the other side of it where we know there's value, but we're conflicted, right? So let's get some clarity. These are clarity-based issues where you would be able to see things clear, you would be able to move forward now, but you don't have the right clarity to give you that confidence, because clarity breeds confidence. So money is not the purpose of you getting into music as an art form. Okay? It is only the fuel that allows the business side of your career to flourish. Okay? So we can't look at money as the goal, as the end all be all purpose of why I'm here, but we have to look at it as a means to an end. The money is the means to the end of creating a career. And what your life looks like once you've developed an income that can give you a career is up to you as an individual. Okay? Now, another thing is, marketing is not just some like corporate black and white unfun thing. Marketing, creating content, learning those skills is art, and it's fun. Like once I started noticing the side of marketing that isn't just numbers but is like art, that's the stuff that starts playing with human psychology in a fun way, just like songs play with human psychology when we have that, drop right before the chorus. That's using a psychological thing called comparison and contrast, which can be used in sales and persuasion and marketing, but it's used in songwriting too, because it's just a function of how the human mind works. So learning marketing is learning the art of how the human mind makes decisions and how you can start to position your music in such a way that you influence their decision to follow you. You influence their decision to buy from you, right? And then lastly, you probably have a weird thing about selling, which most artists that I talk to have this issue, where they feel weird about selling. But here's the thing that gave me a lot of clarity. Selling is just communication. And one thing that you've probably heard this many times in your life, potentially I'm the first one, but either way, you know that communication skills are insanely valuable as a public performer and a musician. Communication skills are everything when it comes to a good live show. Communication skills are exactly what selling is. Selling is just developing your communication in such a way that you can predictably influence. That's really what it is. You're using your behavior and stuff in such a way that it's natural to you. It's just your communication skills, right? You're not trying to be someone you're not. You're figuring out how you best communicate and letting that flourish and letting that bloom and shine. So we got to get clear that money is not an issue, but it's not the purpose either. It's just the fuel to keep, it's the gas in the tank to keep the career going. That's literally what it is, okay? So see it for what it is. Desire to acquire it for what it is, but nothing more. Number 2, marketing. Don't get all like, I'm not a content. Stop it. Musicians have been marketers since Franz Liszt back in the, the Baroque era. People that have been musicians have been marketing in different mediums throughout the tales of history. Literally. It's just recently it developed into, let's say like in the 80s through the early 2000s, it was music videos. And then from the 2010s to now, it's content, right? The medium shifts, but artists are always finding ways to get in front of the right people. And that's what marketing is. And that can be a fun process, and it can be kind of art unto itself, right? So you're a creative, you're good at art, go be good at the marketing art. And then finally, selling is just communication, right? We got to get clear on those things so that when you start moving forward in your music business, you don't have any weird hangups. You don't have this weird identity conflict where you're sitting there saying, I'm a musician, I can't do this. Or I'm a musician, I ought not do this. Or, I don't know if, trying to balance being a musician and doing this and blah, 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 blah. We can get to a point where we get rid of the can'ts. We get rid of the oughts. We get rid of the confusion and the conflicts, and we get clarity. We get clarity and we get focused on who we are and what we desire to be, okay? So if this video helped you out, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, all that kind of good YouTube-y stuff. We have a free community that you can join where I'm going to be diving into more tactical information about implementing these systems inside of your music business, of selling, of marketing, and things of that nature. So go ahead, click the link in the description, join that free group, and we also have a way that you can set up a one-on-one call with me to see if I could help you with your music business. And it's a free call, but click the application link that's in the description to see if we can't help you with your music business. And I look forward to seeing you on another video inside of Musicians Ignite. Take care.